I'm very pleased to introduce our junior researcher, Quan Quan Nguyen. Though only a third of the way through his grant, Quan has graciously agreed to host our December forum tonight. Tonight, he will highlight the field work he has conducted alongside KBS and Daegu University researchers, the result of which will be aired as a documentary in the spring. Quan graduated earlier this year from University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's degree in political science. Since beginning his grant in August, Quan has heavily invested himself into the world of Korean education, making a daily 1-hour commute to an Ansan middle school, conducting and transcribing interviews with students and teachers, and attending a national conference on the flipped learning model with educators from all over Korea. Whether you are a teacher or a student, a Korean or an American, I believe that Quan's work will challenge how you think about education in the 21st century. With that, please join me in welcoming Quan Nguyen. His name is difficult to to the front, and hope you enjoy his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shim, and thank you, Randy, for such a warm introduction. And actually, I really want to thank the unsung heroes, all the staff at Fulbright Building, for just being here and preparing for the food for you guys afterwards. And last but not least, thank you to everyone who made it here out tonight, especially on this holiday season. I'm just really glad we have a packed house, and really glad that you guys are here to share in the collective body warmth, because I'm a Florida boy and this weather is not my cup of tea. But I'm just excited to see a lot of familiar faces and new faces here. Without further ado, my name is Quan, and in case you're wondering, Quan Quan is my real name. It just so happens that my immigrant Vietnamese parents decided that naming their firstborn son Quan Nguyen was a good idea. So when we came to the States, Quan Nguyen in English became Quan Quan. Just a funny tidbit to share for the night. Is that Robert?
Yes.
Just a moment, I think we have some guests. Are you guys fine back there? I have some seats reserved, just special for you. Like, you definitely want to be in the front. Please come up. Yeah. Yeah, please help yourself. We just started.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, let me get started. I'm actually really excited to be here tonight to share you guys with my research. I'm excited for a number of reasons. One, I just talk about education, which is something I think everyone can relate to or has some sort of opinion on. And then two, we get to do something very fun and different, which I'll elaborate a little bit more. So before I do that, let's actually set up some housekeeping rules I want to share. So today we're going to be doing polling throughout the presentation. If you haven't downloaded the Polly app from the App Store, please do so now. I actually think you can all bypass that if you're an iPhone user or a Samsung user. Just go to the actual address, www.pollev.com/Fulbright, and that's going to take you to the website where a lot of our polling will take place. So please do so now if you can. For the next 45 minutes, what I hope to accomplish is three things. First, I will introduce you to my research topic and provide some frameworks to think about. Secondly, I describe you my current project and the past 3 or 4 months of fieldwork that I've done. And then lastly, discuss the road ahead and give you a call to action. Because I think after tonight, I really hope that everyone can come away with some lasting impression or something that made an impression on you that can help you change some sort of aspect of your life after learning about flipped classroom. And honestly, please participate, have fun, and enjoy the forum because we're talking about a topic that is very, very universal. And it's also something that I think as teachers in the building, you get an opportunity to vent a little bit about your struggles as a teacher. So in a way, think of this meeting tonight as a Teachers Anonymous kind of gathering. Without further ado, let's begin. I actually want to start with a poll. So let's get warm up and start with the first poll. Give me a second. Let me load. Okay. So I'm going to start with the first poll. If you guys are on the screen, I'm going to read you a letter. So this is a letter from a teacher in Santa Ana, California. Her name is Crystal Kirk. She teaches at a low-income school in Santa Ana, California. And I think her story is very indicative of the daily struggles of a teacher trying to motivate her students, but experiencing a lot of challenges. So as I read this letter, please chime in. What strikes you about the letter? Offer some thoughts and type away. So this is our first poll. I'm going to read it, and she writes, just picture it. 40 students, 1 teacher. A well-planned learning activity that just didn't work. Students went home to work on homework problems confused, frustrated, and feeling hopeless. Some understood the point of the lesson, most didn't. Students were expected to return to class having mastered the lesson from the previous day, ready to move on. This described too many of my days. In exasperation, I thought to myself, I'm tired of living bell to bell. I'm tired of forcing all students to learn at the exact same pace. I'm tired of rushing through content just to cover it, while my students miss the deeper meaning of what they're meant to learn and how it is connected to the world around them. I'm tired of having students stare at me, sometimes focus and sometimes completely spacing out. I'm tired of, quote, teaching to the middle, not challenging my higher achieving students, yet not serving my struggling learners. I'm tired of passive learners who expect to be spoon-fed and then just spit it back out on a test. I wanted to see my students take an active role in learning, but I just didn't know how. So, let me see. Oh, preach. Okay, I like that. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have what? So this is about what? 30, 40 people. And is that German? I have no idea.
So.
Give me a second. I just want to go and scroll through some of the questions actually, the responses. So this is what you guys can look forward to. Just reading audience members, responses. We have a ton, and I like that. Who wrote "so unflip"? Someone raise their hand. That's so funny. Okay, you know what? At the behest of Brandy and Marissa, I decided that I'm going to give you treats for fast answers. So, can someone who wrote "so unflip"? That was you? Oh my gosh! And then what is that? Zarking Farm? I have no idea what that is. Yes, I know the stare. Oh my lord, that stare. Who is it? Is it you, Robert? Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Zarking Farnworth is from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Got it. I love it. Okay. So yeah, keep it coming. Be creative with the answers, and you'll get choco pie in return. Alright, so next up, you guys know. So this is what we're currently faced with: the idea that students are struggling, and a lot of teachers don't know what to do about it. I'm going to pause this actually. Sorry about that. Kind of move on too early. So Ms. Kirk, when she figured this out, she realized that, I got to do something about it. So she made the flip. She flipped her classroom in 2011, and ever since, that was history. Her class changed. And now, I know that I haven't even talked about the elephant in the room, like what exactly is a flipped classroom. Now before I do that, I want you guys to do one more poll, just to lay some foundation before we actually tackle the problem. So here's one more poll. It's going to be fun. I want you guys to check this one out. This is a multiple choice one. So what you have here are different options for you to select. This is based on the theory of multiple intelligence by developmental psychologist Howard Gardner. So what he proposed was this idea that intelligence isn't just one single ability. It is actually made of components of different intelligence types. And what you have here are of 9 different intelligence modalities based on your learning style. So let's say if you're a very musical person. Part of your learning modality is musical rhythmic. What about athletes? If you're an athlete, most likely you're more in tune with bodily kinesthetic intelligence. If you're a people person, you probably have interpersonal intelligence. If you're more self-aware, which I try to do almost every single day, just to be more self-aware as a person, maybe you're good with intrapersonal intelligence. I'm curious about existential, spiritual. 2 people over there, 2 people that have listed, because I think I know them. Are you guys in the back? We have 2 synim here today. Did you guys sign up for that? Did you guys pick that? Existential, spiritual. That's a little questionable for me. I don't know what that actually means. But it looks like most of us are visual learners. I have a feeling not everybody participated. But I think most of us are visual learners. Can we actually have one person just describe me what you put down as your intelligence? Anybody would like to volunteer?
I will.
Thank you.
My first choice was logical and mathematical. Even though I hate math, it is a type of learning style. Like, for example, grammar. Example of grammar. When I'm learning a language, grammar is always the area I shine in because it has rules and follows kind of like logic. So that always helps me the most when I'm learning. It's like rules.
Great.
Structure.
Can I ask, is your name David?
My name is David.
Okay, I'm going to toss this at you, okay? Whoa. Awesome. Okay, so why did I have you guys do this poll? Well, here's the simple reason. Every student is different. We're all different types of learning styles. We're all different. We have different learning. Every child has different learning styles, needs, and speeds. This is my lame attempt at rhyming, but also just another way of making a point. This is the reality that we face. All students have different learning styles. Here's another point that I want to make. When they have different learning styles, like how do you teach them? Here's a really great quote that I want you guys to just think about. If a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. Anybody know who Ignacio Estrada is? I don't know either. He just came up with this awesome quote, and I think it's very reflective. Very reflective of the circumstances that you see in school, because every teacher wants to reach out to all students and really make them more engaged. But the fact is, when you have a classroom of 40 students, most likely they're all learning at different pace. They all have different ways to study. And this really harkens back to the letter that Mrs. Kirk wrote. This is what she's alluding to, that when you're teaching, this is what you're dealing with, how you engage every single student and make sure that they are all learning and getting the most out of the school experience. So, I'm going to introduce you to wonderful gentlemen that have possibly found a solution to that. They are John Bergman and Aaron Sams, 2 high school chemistry teachers from Colorado that pioneered this flipped classroom learning model back in 2007. And they started off with just trying to reach out to their student athletes who most oftentimes miss class because of sports meets or competitions. So how do you keep these students, afloat and maintain their grades, even though perhaps their commitment is actually sports and not school? What they did was they just made some PowerPoints. They used a screencasting software to record the PowerPoint, and they posted it on YouTube. Now imagine back then, YouTube was just in its infancy. They're still testing out this new technologies, but it worked. It worked for this particular situation. The student athletes were able to come home, watch the lecture on video that they missed in class, and they were able to keep up with their studies. This experiment turned into a book that they wrote in 2012 called Flip Your Classroom. And they recently published a new book, a companion book, that gives more information on best practices for flipped learning. So this is just my way of giving them due credit because they really gave me, a springboard to work from. All right, so now let's actually talk about, the good stuff. What is the flip? What I have here is in this diagram are two classroom scenarios. In the first picture it is a traditional classroom, which I think everyone here is very familiar with. You have lectures in class, the teachers at the front giving the day's agenda, the day's lesson to groups of students. Students come home and they do homework activities in the textbook or whatever kind of lessons. They don't really get help. The teacher's never really there. And their friends, more often they don't really get to study together. So what you see in this particular situation is the students is lost. How do you get help? But in a flipped classroom, lectures are done on video at home. The next day, students are engaged in the classroom with their teachers and their peers. They don't do homework at home, but in class instead. And these homework can be in any form of group activities, projects, games, and already I see some beneficial aspects of this learning model. You see more student-to-teacher interaction, especially with the weakest students, the students that don't talk in class. Now the teacher gets to interact with them more often due to the flip. You also see more peer-to-peer interactions, especially when students are grouped together in tables, working together in the homework rather than sitting side by side in a traditional class. In theory, this leads to more individualized learning because the students can just watch the video as often as they want to attain the material, and they actually can self-pace their own learning. And obviously in today's world, we're integrating new technology that can help transform the learning experience of every child, especially in a generation where I think it's more tech savvy than ever. I don't think many of the students nowadays know what a floppy disk is. Like, do you guys know what a floppy disk is? God, it's crazy. I think that was like 10, 15 years ago when that thing existed, and now they're pretty much extinct. So kids today are growing up with new innovative technology that we want to leverage and incorporate in their educational experience. Now, how does Korea fit into all of this? So we've talked about, this basic idea, but how does Korea fit in? Well, let me play some devil advocate, play devil's advocates, because Korea is doing pretty well if you think about it in the PISA ranking. And this is a test that the OECD does on 15-year-olds all across the world to judge their performance in math, reading, and science. And this is an interesting statistic. Just 2 years ago, they did a study on creative problem solving, and Korean students did particularly well. They are almost neck to neck with Singaporean students. And next up, Korean students are also quite intelligent and successful, like high academic performers. When it comes to math, science, and reading, they're among the top 5 countries. And they've been consistently like this throughout the years. But when it all boils down to the overall larger picture, there are some underlying issues that we don't often talk about because it's all obscured by the statistics. And I think as teachers, being teachers and having taught in a Korean educational environment, I think you guys can all agree that these are prevalent issues, very present in the environment. The good, we talk about, this is what we know, this is what we like to give praise to, that Korean students are high academic performers. And a lot of graduates get out of universities. They're a high percentage of university-educated people. But think about the issues at what cost, though. There's still an emphasis on rote learning. There's, at the expense of having great educated, university-educated people, there's a high graduate unemployment rate that while you have great, smart students, they're all competing for very limited jobs. And then there's this glut of private education. Korea is the #1 private spender on private education in relation to their GDP. So they spend a massive amount on education, on private education, so much that a good chunk of household income is dedicated to this, and sometimes families take out loans that they can't pay just to make sure that their kids get an edge in this rat race. Of course, that also leads to testing scandals, anxiety in the national exam. You guys all know the sunim. And then this all kind of come to a head when we have eventually students that aren't motivated. They're not satisfied with their learning experience. You see an increasing income gap between the haves and haves not. And ultimately, you have the high human cost when students commit suicide because they can't take the pressure. And for me, I think this is worth it to see Korea and see how the flip can apply. What makes it so right? I would say a number of reasons that make the flip platform so poised to change the Korean landscapes. And I think that has to do with the way we learn. And comes back to just the core idea of why we're in school. And this next poll I want you guys to do is ask yourself this question, like, what did you learn in class? Okay? Ask yourself whether if you're in K through 12 or college or grad school or professional school, ask yourself what did they actually learn? Not content-wise, but ask yourself, like, what kind of skills did you learn? This is important because when we think about the Korean classroom, sometimes you don't learn much. And I'm going to talk more about that afterwards, but let's see some answers while we're here. Okay, deadline research, how to follow rules, note-taking, how to go with the flow. Okay. Not much I use in real life. Empathy, advocate for others, how to write, how to BS convincingly. I like that. Who's that? Who's the BS? Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay. Technology skills, interpersonal skills. What kind of school did you go to? Who's that person? I like that though. I'm just kidding. Sorry about that. Okay. So there's a lot of different skills. I'll give that one more because I do that too. Is that Ben? Sorry, I'm not in sports for a reason. But yeah, so you can see that in school we learn a variety of skills, but how much of it is practical and how much of it is relevant to our life? Which brings me now to this next point I want to make. Okay. How good am I on time, Randy?
You have like half an hour.
Half an hour?
25 minutes.
Great. So this brings me to my next point. We're talking about skills, and I want to introduce you to Bloom's taxonomy, which is basically a way of classifying different cognitive learning skills by Benjamin Bloom, an educational psychologist. And what he did was he came up with a variety of different cognitive skills that people learn. And this is a very simplified version of six or so cognitive skills. And this really specifically applies to the Korean context where understanding and remembering is more important, more emphasized, highly emphasized, and practiced in the classroom rather than the more higher level skills such as creating, evaluating, analyzing, and applying. So this is what you see in a typical Korean classroom. How about flipping it? flipping it and then putting more emphasis in the higher order thinking skills, creating, evaluating, analyzing, and applying rather than remembering and understanding, which is basically a keyword for rote learning. How about we flip Bloom's taxonomy and give more emphasis to these higher skills and create students that are engaged and more satisfied with learning. And this brings me to my next part, which I want to talk to you about. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to see happen at a middle school in Ansan. Bono Middle School, no relation to the Irish rock star from the band U2, hopefully not. But the school is just, it's great. And I don't know about you guys, but middle school is a phase that I don't really want to relive. It's a very, I don't know, middle school Quan was just an awkward and acne-ridden kid who thought he had imaginary friends. Just so embarrassing. I used to be that kid that named his pencils Quan Juniors. And then I remember I had a navy blue JanSport backpack that I called Miss Blueberry. And I was a totally awkward child, and these kids at my school are the same. They're just a bunch of hooligans, and they're cute though. They're adorable. But this is where I worked at, and for me, it's so fun to see this happening. And this is not the first time that we're flipping. I just want to give you guys some context. This is one of 20 schools currently in Korea that's going through this flip experiment. And these schools range from elementary, middle, high school, and special ed schools. And KBS is filming this documentary on all these schools. My school happens to be the largest school out of all the 20 schools. And this is the second phase of their documentary. The first phase they completed in 2013, where they filmed a pilot program in Busan, at a all-boys middle school in Busan. And I'm going to show you a few clips of the documentary later on. But right now, this is our case study that we're going to go look into further. Some background information on where this school is at. It's in Ansan City, about 1.5-hour commute from Seoul on line 4. School size, there's about 1,520 students. It's a low-income school. And they began flip in August, and will continue to do so by February. So this is just for one semester. And we're doing it with first-year middle school and third-year middle school students. Currently, 8 teachers are flipping their classrooms, and they range from all sorts of topics: math, science, history, art, and English. Just today we had our last film shoot, so they just wrapped up filming today with students. But we're going to come back later in February just to see some of our students graduate and get an update on the first-year students. So how does the flip work at my school? Prior to the flip in August, they had a summer camp where they train and learn how to use the technology. And this is applicable to, I think, in all scenarios. You need these kind of tools. First, you need internet access. The school I'm at, because it's low income, we don't have Wi-Fi access in every room, so we use routers instead. So the teacher used the internet there with routers, and you need some sort of screencasting software to record your lectures. So Explain Everything, this app you can find on Apple. It's about $15. There's also a Android version, but this is a popular screencasting software that teachers use to make their lectures. And obviously you need some sort of video sharing website. So YouTube has been a popular place to post video. And if you want to get even more creative, use tablets and iPads. But I find that a lot of teachers with personal computers still do an effective job at presenting video lectures right on their PCs. And of course, this doesn't mean that classroom texts are obviated. Like, we still use the classroom text, but we use it in a more effective way. There's still the same course material that students are going to learn from. The curriculum hasn't really changed, but the mode of delivery has significantly changed in a way that makes classroom time more effective. I'm going to give you an example of one teacher. Her name is Quan Quan Nguyen. She is middle school English 1, so she teaches the first year students English. And this is an example of a video that she did. She also has a good taste in rap music.
네, 안녕하세요. 문화중학교 학생 여러분. 오늘은 8과 문법 수업을 하도록
So she's
하겠습니다.
teaching some grammar.
자, 학습 목표는 첫 번째가 수요 동사를 공부하는 것이고요. 두 번째는 동명사를 배우는 것입니다. 이 두 가지 이것만 알면 되니까 두 개만 알면 되니까 빨리
It's
끝내도록
basically
하겠습니다.
she's introducing the topic of how to use indirect and direct verbs, direct object verbs.
누구누구에게 무엇을 해주다라는 뜻으로 해석이 되고요. 목적어 두 개입니다. 간접 목적어, 직접 목적어 하는 두 개의 목적어를 가지는 동사입니다. 예를 들면 여기에서 동사 gave가 있죠. give의 과거형 give, 주다. 누구에게 뭘 주다 할 때 이 give 같은 것이 바로 수요 동사입니다. 예를 들어서 한번 볼까요? 자, 문장은 주어, 처음에 주어가 나오고 그 다음 동사가 나오는데 그게 수요 동사 나오고요. 간접 목적어, 사람에게 무엇을 할 때 사물, 직접 목적어, 에게라는 뜻이 간접 목적어고요. 을을 이게 직접 목적어입니다.
So she's basically trying to teach the students how to write. I gave her some flowers.
꽃을 주었다. 먼저 주어가 오려면 I가 오겠죠. 그 다음에 수요 동사는 아까 얘기했던
She gets to show the students.
에게 그녀에게 무엇을 그녀에게 꽃을 flower.
And the students who watch this, usually the video is about 5 to 10 minutes. The students will watch it at home and then they come the next day to do different exercises on the same grammar activity that they learned online. So what you see is out of class they watch these kind of lectures, and then in class they do activities, interactive activities, group projects that tackles the same grammar structures but in a more effective and engaging way. So bottom line, she's no longer the sage on the stage. She's not the one sole content provider. She's not the sole source of information for these students. But in class, she acts more as a guide on the side, where she gets to interact with all students and give them tips and support and engage them and help them learn the material. And this is what a typical flipped classroom setting would look like. It's chaotic, it's loud, it's crazy. Students are everywhere doing one thing and doing another. Some groups are ahead of other students doing a project. Other groups are behind because they haven't watched the video. So you can see on the bottom left corner, the boys are actually sitting outside in the hallway because they didn't watch the video. Yeah. So they're out there watching, and the teacher has to come back and forth. She shuttles back and forth between classroom and hallway just to check up, make sure that everyone is, on task. And obviously, this is a lot of work because you're no longer sitting, in one place anymore, staying in one place. You're everywhere. You're trying to keep all eyes on all your students. Okay, so one more poll that I want you guys to take. Let's say you're a teacher and you no longer have a lecture in class. What would you do instead? What would you institute? What would you incorporate into this new free time? If you're no longer giving a class lesson, what would you do instead? Not working. It's not working?
You have to start the poll.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Okay, give me a second, guys. I'm sorry. This is really weird. It should be. Okay.
What would I do? I'd fix the technology.
This happens too. This happens a lot too.
Technology fails a lot in classrooms.
That's
should
what.
never totally rely on
This
it.
is something that I experienced too.
Backup plans.
That technology, while it is helpful in many ways, it can also backfire. And this is one example right now. Okay, this is so weird.
What happens when you have no electricity?
I'm sorry?
Sometimes the students have the students go to watch the lecture at home, no electricity.
The electricity? Great point. I actually don't know, but I think one special way is just giving them access to their, they can watch on their iPods or on their phone. Sometimes that works without computer, Yeah.
Are they able to download the lectures, like so it's free of internet?
I think depends on your teaching style. Actually, can we save some questions afterwards? I really want to. I'll move on. Sorry, guys. This is so unfortunate. What last time? Yeah.
Well, my response was going to be more online polling, but now it's a little late.
Oh. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna go and just move on. Let's see. Okay.
You can always just shout our answers.
Yeah. You guys can shout it if you want. I'm gonna go and retrace my steps. Okay. So what would you do then? Anybody? Any volunteer? What would you do?
Projects.
Projects? What kind of projects?
I'm really into like project-based learning, where
Okay.
it gets involved with the community. So I probably combine it with that.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna toss it to you. Yeah, Annie?
to museum.
Field trips. Field trips. I'm a big fan. See the outdoors. Okay. Anybody? One more? Anybody else?
Write a newspaper in class.
Oh, one of our students did that. We had a class project where they learned about the French Revolution, and good catch. And they made a newspaper about the revolution. Okay, moving on. So now you have a better idea of the technology behind this. What exactly happens in a classroom? So I'm going to give you a prime example. This is class 1학년 6번, class first year, number 6, and they are a joy to teach. They are a flipped math classroom, and when I first saw them interact with each other, the students and the teacher, I was blown away. So I'm going to give you guys what will be a series of photos that depict the class flow. So this is basically a few photos that depict the 45 minutes in a classroom, in a flipped classroom. So day starts at 11:05. The teacher, her name is Ogeok Sangsinim, and she is a boss. She knows how to take control of the classroom, great with management, and she also happens to be the head teacher of professional development at Bono. So she's years of experience, and she's just, she's a firecracker. So in this diagram, just to give you guys, your bearings, just to help you find your bearings, the diagram basically depicts the classroom. The teacher's in red. She's the red dot at the front. And then there are 9 different tables, number 1 through 9. You see the TV in the corner. So hopefully you guys can follow along as I scroll through these photos. But we're at 11:05, start of class. Teacher is going to give a brief agenda just to show people, just to give the students an idea of what's going to happen in class. 3 minutes in, we have some students that are completely distracted. They're just not paying attention. They're not really focused on what the teacher is saying. We have these two boys who decided to be best friends with their desks. They just can't, this is what happens, you still see students fall asleep. Even in a flipped classroom, as much as we want all students to engage, some of them just are out of it. They don't really want to learn. And I'm going to direct you guys to the TV. This is depending on how a teacher's teaching style. Ogeok likes to use the TV, so she gives an agenda of the day. She's very thorough. This is what I expect from you guys. I'm going to give you X amount of time to finish activity A, B, and C. Other teachers simply just write a few words on the blackboard. They don't really use the TV. But with Ms. Ogeok, she just wants everyone to be on task. So every student knows exactly what's expected of them in the 45 minutes that they have. Okay, I'm going to take you guys to table 1, the dream team. This is such an active table. You see them just buzzing with activities. The 2 kids in the back, Taeyeon and Sungdo, 2 of my favorite students. They really know how to help each other and give feedback to their friends. and currently they're working on a problem set. And they're helping their friends finish this problem set. And for me, this is such an amazing thing to see kids working with each other. And I think for the most part, these two actually grasp the material very well, so they're able to help their peers. Meanwhile, Ogeok goes to the front board and she has this thing that she does all the time. This is something that she likes to do. She gives points to different tables every time they complete an activity. So you can see table 1 is in the lead, they finished 2 activities. And she'll do this often. Like once a table finishes an activity, they'll raise their hand and say like, 다 했어, 선생님, something like that. And then the teacher goes to the front of the board and marks off a circle, checks off a circle just to keep track of the progress. I'm going to direct you guys to table 8. This is the table of princesses. All they do is stare at themselves in the mirror and comb their hair. And today, they didn't do any of the video lectures. So they're sitting in class, catching up with the video lecture while all their friends are doing the activity. So these guys are straggling behind. Meanwhile, Ogeok goes back to table 1 because table 1 is in the lead, but they also have a question that they need her to clarify. But oh no, what's going on? Right at the bottom right corner, table 7, there's an Amber Alert. Something's going on. We have a kid missing in action. He's sitting there and he's asleep. He's at a table full of Nunas, so don't pay attention to him. And he's really struggling. Like, what is she going to do? So she sees this and she makes it to his table, rescue him from the depths of despair. And she's probably saying like "Dahi, irona" or something like that. I don't know, but she's saying something to just get him motivated to learn. And I know that he's like a great kid, but just today I think it's a bad day for him. He doesn't want to do anything. But she's there to help him. We have a crisis averted, and she goes back to table 6 to help with them with their problems. She goes to table 9 next door to help this group of kids. And then she doubles back to table 8 because one of the students probably had a question about the video lecture. And table 8, this is the princess table. Look at the time, this is 11:36. About 5 minutes later, she's back staring at herself in the mirror. So, you can't win everybody. Some kids will never pay attention, but some other kids will really enjoy learning and doing activities in a flipped class. And then before you know it, class time is over. You see the points. Table 1 obviously finished most of the activities. Table 8, the princess table, didn't do any of the activity. They had an X, and the X basically means they didn't watch the video lecture, and because of that, they couldn't finish the activities. That's basically 45 minutes boiled down to a few pictures, and to give you an idea of how this whole thing worked. Now, this is where the exciting part comes in. I want to show you a few clips from the Busan documentary. These are from the actual documentary that happened at the school. They filmed in August of 2013, and for one semester, these teachers have never done anything like it before. They work with boys. The boys are rowdy. It's also a low-income school. But the special part about this school is that they got a grant from the Busan Education Commission to get smart boards. So this school is very lucky to have the technology. They have Wi-Fi access there, and they have smart boards to work with. So we have 2 teachers that flip. She is an English teacher, and another teacher we'll see is a Korean teacher. She teaches Korean history and culture. So I'm going to show you about, I think, 5 to 6 minutes worth of clips. So this is the first clip. This is on the weekend prior to the first day of flip. So the teachers are busy making their
학교에 나와보니까 금벽장난을 처음 들어봤습니다. 제 말씀을 드리면 이걸 나갈 때는 안 나오는데 이렇게 나온 게 정말 얼마만인지 정말 까마득한 인간이거든요.
I know one beauty last summer. 자, 이건 중앙 동영상 시작하겠습니다. 여러분들은 첫 번째 수업 동영상을 올렸습니다. 때론 밤을 새고 주말을 다 반납하면서 만든 동영상 강의.
So over here is English lecture, and over there is the Korean history.
부디 좋은 결과가 나와야 할 텐데 말이죠. 드디어 거꾸로 글씨 프로젝트 첫날이 밝았습니다. 걱정 반, 기대 반.
This is the first day of
자,
Korean
오늘은
class.
자, 지금 앞뒤로 돌아앉아서 조를 4명씩 4인 1조 만들어주세요. 조를 돌아앉아서. 지금 있는 자리에서
수업 방법이 바뀌었으니 일단 자리 배치부터 달라집니다.
동영상으로 강의를 보고 왔죠? 뭘 봤죠? 먼저 문제를 풀는 한번 보세요. 자, 만약 충분히 들었다면은 가능할 거라고 생각합니다. 자, 지금 잘 들은지 안 들은지.
그런데 어째 분위기가 심상치 않죠?
다시 말하기 가능하신 분들부터 양쪽 거. 도저히 할 수가 없다. 그네들은 지금 패드하고 책을 들고 뒤로 나가라. 여기 뒤에 가서 보고 다시 들어옵니다. 필기도 들고 나가서 다시.
아, 이게 무슨 일입니까?
나가봐라. 아무나 다시 먹나? 이거는 아닌데.
그렇게 준비를 하고
Hard to
문득
stop. My
기대하고
heart will sing
왔는데
too. So all the boys like.
자리에 남아있는 아이는 고작 8명. 3분의 2의 아이들이 강의를 보지 않았습니다.
배우를 가시면 이러한 고려가요의 대표적인 작품이야.
If you listen to the music, it's actually very sad Korean soppy music with
생각보다
the sound of the
선생님의
lecture that she
분위기가 더 싸늘한가요?
두 번째, 고려가요의 형식적.
It's the magic of KBS editing.
그럼
아이들이 많이 당황한 듯합니다.
So I'm just gonna pause this. We don't have enough time, so I'm gonna actually skip to what happened afterwards. So basically, she gives them about 10-15 minutes just to catch up on the lecture. The same thing happened in the English classroom as well. Most of the students didn't watch the video lecture, so they gave the students time to just watch it in class. Ideally, that shouldn't happen, but just because of the first day, the students didn't watch. And now you get to see what happened after that. After let me see. This is what happened afterwards.
그때도 내가 이 마음이라면은 정말 좋겠어.
도대체 무슨 일이 벌어졌을까요? 10분 뒤 수업 동영상을 보고 아이들이 돌아옵니다. 뭔가 분위기가 다른데요? 교실이 이상해졌습니다. 끝없이 떠드는 아이들을 가만히 들여다보면 모두 선생님이 나눠준 과제를 함께 푸느라 정신없습니다.
그렇죠. 네.
평소 수업 시간에 그렇게도 조용하던 아이들이 끝없이 선생님을 불러댑니다. 마치 어미를 기다리며 삐약거리는 아기 셋째 같습니다. 일찍이 볼 수 없었던 질문 대공세입니다. 그것도 점심시간 직후 가장
피곤하고 오늘은 뭐 잠이 하나도 안 졸고 오늘 재밌었어요.
And he didn't sleep in class, had a lot of fun. I'm going to move on to one last clip. Okay, this is... Okay, so just a preface. So they spent a semester doing this, and now we're going to see some final exam results. Like, did it change? Did they improve? Okay.
한 학기 동안 거꾸로 교실 실험의 성과를 확인해 볼 수 있는 기말고사 시험이 치러졌습니다. 가르침을 벌이는 큰 모험을 감행한 미차쌤과 아이들, 그 결과는 어떨까요?
3학년 2반급 3학년 2반.
과연 중간고사 때처럼 깜짝 놀랄 만한 변화가 이번에도 나타날 수 있을까요?
근데 성적이 23년 3학년 이 56점 정말 최고점
One other student had a 56-point difference in the final exam score.
아닌가 말을 더듬어
믿기 힘든 결과가 계속 등장했습니다.
중간고사 60 계속 이겼는데 거의 만점 하나 틀렸네. 이게 많았네.
사실상 거의 전원이 그 성적이 상승했다고 봐야 되는데.
그러니까 이게 다
The guy is the KBS director. He's the one that's filming.
1학기 말과 비교한 성적 상승폭은 상상을 뛰어넘었습니다. 170명이 성적이 올랐고 27명만이 떨어졌습니다. 점수 분포의 변화는 더욱 놀라웠습니다. 중간고사에 이어 기말고사까지 급격하게 하위권 학생들이 사라지고 중상위권이 두터워졌습니다. 흥미롭
Okay, going back to presentation. So what you see is that the flip does work at the school. After a semester, a majority of the students improve their scores drastically. Just stunning results after one semester's worth of flipping, that you see all of this improvement, especially in some of the weakest students. Like, they were able to improve their scores 50 points, 56 points. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount. So moving on to the last part of my presentation, the road ahead. This is a picture from one of the conferences I was at on Flip Learning. Just two elderly senior teachers trying out the screencasting software on the iPad. And I think it's a good picture just to see that, you know, even though these teachers are from a different generation, I think they're still willing to change and still willing to adopt new learning strategies to help their students. And it touches me so much to see that kind of motivation in teachers. Like, they themselves are also students and they're willing to learn to improve. Okay, so one last poll for the night. I hope this works. If you had to flip part of your life, what would it be? I hope it works. If not, we're just gonna... Is it working? Anybody hit send? I wonder how you flip. Love life. Oh. Wait, I don't get it, love life. So basically, instead of dating in real life, you want to like date online, and then I don't know how this works. Right? Breakfast for dinner. Is that it? Is that it? Anybody else? Do we have more? Come on. Wow. I feel like these are like New Year resolutions. They're not really flipped. They're more like New Year resolutions. Ooh, who said pancakes? I like pancakes.
I don't need
Oh.
another chocolate bar. Give two to the next person.
To be younger. What? Okay. Who said that? Anybody? Oh. Okay. I'm gonna give two more out. Aging. Oh, that's the same thing. To be younger. That doesn't count. Sleeping pattern. Over there? Oh, that was David? 3 for 3. Okay. Okay. Guys, you aren't creative tonight. What's going on? Paying your bills. Hallelujah.
That's me, yeah.
You know, I'm just gonna keep this here. We have like 5 minutes left. Let's move on. But as you can see, you know, there's a lot of things you can flip. But most importantly, I want you guys to get out these main takeaways, that it's really all about classroom time. How do you make the most of it for your students? In a flipped classroom, it's more about student-centric learning rather than the teachers teaching. Teachers are still vastly important, but now they are in a more supportive role as facilitators or a coach rather than just a sole source of information. Also important, and we've seen it tonight, technology doesn't drive the pedagogy. So we can't rely 100% on the technology. It's important to use technology and leverage it in the classroom, but good teaching is still invaluable. Thirdly, flipping is about flipping your mindset, most importantly, because a lot of these teachers are still not ready to take the leap. They're not ready to make the leap because it's new. It's a big learning curve to use new technology that can be intimidating. But if you're willing to give it a try, there's so much potential to change the lives of your students. And lastly, it's a global movement. It started in just a humble school in Colorado, and now it's spread to so many countries. It spread to Korea this past summer in 2013. And it's in Finland, it's in Iceland, it's in Japan, it's in Taiwan. Many schools throughout the world are trying this out and seeing great results. But let's go back to my research. Like, why is it limiting? Like, what are the challenges that I see? I still think there's a lot of data collection that I need to do. And there's a current lack of qualitative information and quantitative information too that I don't have. Like, I wish I have more of the results from the Bono experiment, but that won't come out until the documentary is released. And the documentary is slated for April. So most likely in April, I'll have more of the raw data to work with and to interpret if the flip actually was successful at my middle school. More importantly, I'm working very intimately with third-year students as my case study, but they're graduating in February, so I don't have that much time left with them. So in terms of having a longitudinal study on their progress and what they do afterwards, that might not be as likely. And we have to ask ourselves these kind of quintessential questions. Does flipping work for everybody? Does flipping work for all teachers, all students? What are the best practices? And should there be standardized training for teachers? I know, for example, a lot of teachers that start doing flipping, they don't know what to do. They're still lost. Like, how do I try to engage on a video, like on screen? Like, sometimes I struggle in person. Like, how do I now channel that personality into a video and get my students to be engaged? And do I even have the resources at hand to make these videos? And I think, you know, many of it is still anecdotal, but also case by case. But rigorous research hasn't been done on the efficacy of flipped classrooms. There's still a ton of research still currently being done, but substantial information isn't out there yet, and they're still working on it because it's such, like I said, it's such a grassroots movement that is still currently happening. And but I suspect in a few years you'll see some dramatic changes. I also want to end on a good note because I've been struggling to answer this question myself. Why did they name the school Bono? Bono Middle School. So I'm going to direct you to this insignia on the upper right-hand corner. You know, this right here. I'm going to do something right now because I think I have cracked the code. So do you see this? I'm going to draw this right here. What does it look like? You know, it looks like a clover. A clover! Yeah, it looks like a clover, 4-leaf clover, which is Irish. And who is Irish?
It's a ring.
I don't know, I tried, but I think, you know, I think I'm getting there. I think I'm on to something.
Well, I thought maybe it's like a central.
I don't know, open for interpretation, but that's what I want to end. You know, I think there's a mystery that's been solved right now.
Have you asked them?
I didn't, you know?
In your 4 months here, you never asked.
Never asked. Okay, so right now I am happy just to open up for questions. Let me see, go back to the slide. Yeah. So, yeah, without further ado, if you guys have any question, just in your way. I think Ben?
Yeah. My question is, how do you see this method coexisting, I guess, with the student? Because we know that the student is something that relies really heavily on memorization, but you're talking about putting rote memorization at the bottom of the pyramid. So, like, do you see this as something that can effectively prepare students for a test that relies really heavily on memorization?
That is opening up a can of worms because I realized that, you know, I'm working at a middle school, so the students aren't necessarily preparing for sitting. If I was in a high school that flipped, maybe I would have more insights. Because obviously when you get to the high school level, students are trying to prepare to take this national exam. And like you say, it relies heavily on rote memorization, trying to answer all this question to the test, and not necessarily maximizing creative skills that I think is more conducive to flipped learning. I see it as a stepping stone, actually. I think that as long as students have developed a new culture of learning, where they're really self-directed learners and they know how to seek out information that's relevant to their exams or tests, like rather than relying, I guess, on hot-ones or relying on a teacher or some sort of tutor to help them prepare for the student, they maybe have, through flipped learning, they really engage themselves with the material and have a deeper understanding about the content. And I think that naturally makes them more effective test takers because it not only benefits them in a way where they excel on these tests, but also they can see the larger picture. Like, why does this matter to me? Like, why am I learning about calculus? Not just to take the test and get an A, but also to see the connections that calculus has in real life approaches. It's hard. I don't think I answered your question. Like, I don't think I can answer that question. But I feel that I don't think necessarily flipped classroom is in direct competition with the student. But I think it just offers a different path for students to study for the student.
Okay. Thank you.